my name is Carina, and this is what God's doing in my life today. As some of you all know, I just got back on Tuesday from a missions trip to Managua, Nicaragua. It was an amazing experience, and I'd love to tell you more about it. God just put it on my heart to go on this missions trip back in April. The trip that I went on, we had three main missions of what we were working on in sharing the gospel. First, we did a medical mission. Then we did free haircuts, and finally we did a free VBS. We worked in two churches in the ghettos of Managua, Nicaragua, where we worked among some of the poorest people who live on $1 to $2 a day. I was so blessed and so challenged by how incredibly generous the people were, how much they wanted to give to us, yet when we had so much more financially maybe that we could give to them. God really worked on my heart on this missions trip and taught me a lot. Before I went on the trip, I was really praying that God would give me a flexible heart and personality, because as much as I love planning big events, I was not yet ready to host a VBS for 200 kids plus. And then when we got there, the missionary asked if we would be willing to do VBS for two churches. And we didn't have the materials, and so God really answered those prayers that I asked for flexibility, and just use me in ways that I know it wasn't just me, that it was God definitely giving me strength and wisdom and insight. And let me tell you, everything went totally against plan. It went totally wrong, and yet it was all for God's good, that it was all in His plan. So as a result, over 200 kids got to hear the gospel. 200 kids got to do crafts that they would have never gotten to do. Their churches just can't afford. People were so incredibly generous. I can't even tell you how much so. As one example, we couldn't drink the water when we were in Nicaragua because we could get really sick from it. And I was especially afraid of that because whenever I go to Mexico, I get sick from the water. And so God was faithful. He kept our entire team from getting sick. But that meant that when we were at the church, we couldn't drink the water. We had to bring our own. And it came to a point pretty much every day where we would run out of water. And so the members of the church would offer us cans of Coca-Cola. And to give you an idea of how costly a Coca-Cola is in Nicaragua, whenever a Coca-Cola truck is distributing, when you see it stopped at a convenience store, there's an armed guard with I saw a sawed-off shotgun or a machine gun guarding it. So it's very costly. It's very precious there. And yet this church would give us cans of Coca-Cola, and they were so proud of the Coke. And that's just one example of how that costs. You know, to feed our missions team Coca-Cola would be about 2 weeks' wage for one person for one day of Coke for us. And that's just how giving and how just loving they were. God was so faithful to my team and I on our missions trip. We were so incredibly blessed. I can tell you that God was moving. This was a huge encouragement from God that if He calls us to do something, He's going to be faithful to just give us everything we need to follow His will. This is how I've experienced a real God with real power.